Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm co-host, Scott.
And today we'll be going over chapters 16 through 20 of World Serpent Arcanist. But before we get into that, I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you because we are over 1,200 downloads overall for the podcast itself. So thank you so much. Hi, it's Eric.
And Scott.
And we're kind of jumping from the future to bring a quick update that Shami wants to make sure she shares and gets out to everybody. I know this is going to be airing on the 25th of September. Now, again, from the future here, we're letting you guys know that on the 26th, so tomorrow, if you're listening to this or watching this, the day that this is released, tomorrow, September 26, 2024, her Plague Arcanist or Plague Bestiary is going to be released on Kickstarter for taking orders for on there. So we are so excited to get Plague creatures now. We're going to get all those Bestiary stuff, the regular form stuff. Now we're going to be getting all the Plague stuff. So if you are interested in going in and joining the Kickstarter, please feel free to click on the link down below. We will make sure we have that in there, and just wanted to make sure we got this in there before it goes live. And with that, Scott, did you have anything else you'd like to add from the future?
Tomorrow's going to be a great day, so.
Yay. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll get into chapter 16, Arrival at Fortuna. So Karna, we left off in chapter 15 with Karna basically stating that she wants him to return to her quarters so that they can continue their snuggling at night. And as we could imagine, this did not go over very well with Addie or with Eviana. This is where it leads into chapter 16. And Karna is basically trying to tear at Volke's morality with the way that she acted and reacted to Volke basically saying that they aren't what they expect everybody thinks they are. And as she's talking to him about this, his spice senses are tingling again, and we're not sure. He's like, I'm not sure if this is my newfound magic or if this is something because of the plague, but he can kind of sense that she's not necessarily lying, but she's being dishonest. I would admit this would be an amazing thing to have for the mass majority, but there would be times where I'd be like, look, I don't want to know the truth. I want you to lie to me, because when I was gonna say, like, do I look fat? And somebody would say no, I'd be like, yeah, I actually don't care. Like, I'm probably like 4 of 5 fat friends that somebody has, so.
I could just imagine, like, white lies galore. Like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm okay. And just spidey senses, like, do I want to get into this? Like,
how deep do I want to go with this? Because do I really have the time, like, to really delve into that today? But I do genuinely enjoy their interaction, even though Karna is trying to kind of manipulate him and his emotions. But even though Volke is so extremely naive and clueless when it comes to Karna.
And honestly, his cluelessness just reminds me of me. Honestly, to be honest, I think we've all been in those situations where you look back on it and you're like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah. It's like when your wife says that she's fine and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, she's not fine.
The spidey senses should go off for that one.
Right. Or if they say, go ahead and do what you want, just do the exact opposite of what you want, because that's what they're saying.
It's not an invite.
Some of us have ended up in the doghouse and had to the hard way. So they are working their way back to Fortuna. They're on the ship for roughly about a week. As they get into port, Hexa, of all people, basically comes up to Volke and is like, I'm going to teach you about women. I'm not sure that is going to go very well, just because it's Hexa. Like, she's that tomboy kind of girl.
There's a lot of cultural differences that she brings out, especially with the Hydras. Be like, Hydras like it when you're super persistent. Okay, well, a lot of women don't.
I love her scars. I love that she wears her scars with pride. I do. But I have a feeling that's not a norm as outside of the Hydra Canyon. Hexa is starting to train with Volke as well, because Hydras don't need to sleep very much. She doesn't need to sleep very much, I guess. Volke, he needs to sleep even though Luther doesn't. So he still is getting his sleep. But Hexa, she's training with him in the wee hours of the morning because he can't sleep. And he realizes that she's getting very adept with her knives, especially being coated in poison. And she actually got Volke a few times. And thankfully, Adelgis, being able to read minds, has noticed that Volke is kind of like panicking that he just got stabbed with a poison knife, so that they can help him out. So they arrive to Fortuna. They do notice that Gentle is outside of the port. And that means that Guildmaster Eventide must have found somebody to bond with the World Serpent. So here we are in a race to get to the Guild Manor House now to find out who this person is.
And that brings us to Chapter 17, a man named Ryker. They are, as they're making their journey, they're going to stop at the Isle of Ruma. They do have everything that they need to go ahead and look for the World Serpent. They have the rune stone, they have the scale, they have the occult compass. So they're ready to go on the prowl. Devlin has agreed to help them a while longer. He's pretty hesitant about it, but essentially understands the importance of it. So he's signed up along with his crew, which would be a major boost to the guild. We do also learn that Eviana is really struggling with nightmares from her sister, which I think is kind of a common theme. We've seen, her struggling just a lot in dealing with her sister's death and feeling responsible and being away from home. So she's even struggling at night with that as well.
I just want to make a quick note of Eviana having these nightmares, and I'm not trying to downplay that what she's gone through has struggled. I just want to say the irony of her having nightmares, but being bonded to a nightmare.
She's plagued by them in more ways than one.
Yes.
Volke ends up telling Addie about the marriage proposal with Eviana, and Addie has probably the best reaction you can have to that, and she understands that Eviana really just needs somebody so that she isn't mad that it happened, which I don't really understand that logic. I would be kind of furious at Volke if I were her, but good for her.
Right? I would be pretty furious too. Be like, what do you mean?
You were almost betrothed?
And just to be like, she needs somebody right now. Like, it's a fling. She's just a little young pup. She'll grow out of it.
Yeah, the most just empathetic response I think you could have with that. They are able to use the shadows, and with the shadow stepping, everybody's able to get to Gentle. And there is a man who we saw before with Eventide. His name is Ryker. He does not have a last name. So it's no James Bond there. And he is going to be the future World Serpent Arcanist.
I wonder if he doesn't have a last name, or if the last name is being withheld.
It's curious.
So chapter 18 kicks off right as they're met Ryker. Ryker seems to be a very humble person so far. And I can't imagine if I were told that I was destined to be a godlike figure. I don't think I could keep that in check, like my ego.
I don't see how you do, even if you're not Zaxxas. Like, that's got to get into your head a little bit of, I have some power now, at least.
Or like, I'm gonna be all powerful. Like, that's a pretty huge ask. I mean, I guess there's either it goes straight to your head, or it goes the complete opposite direction, and you doubt yourself of being able to be a god arcanist.
And it probably is moment to moment, honestly, with that. I could see myself flip-flopping back and forth with, I'm ready to take on the world, and then I can't even handle my everyday job. How am I supposed to take over the world?
Well, especially with the fact that Eventide literally just came up to him and said, hey, you're the guy that these psychics had spoken about on this island, and you are now going to be with us to go find this world snack and bond with it and get married and be its mate forever.
Yeah, it's a lot to take on in one moment.
Volke has a lot of reservations about Ryker, though, so this is something that where has this been for the last 4 books? Volke has been so like on point of I trust you.
Yeah, he trusted Fane, who was a pirate of the third abyss, and trying to murder him. But sure, Eventide finds this guy that's supposed to be the World Serpent, and you're like, I don't know about him.
Right? So Volke does a very logical thing. He tells Luther that he would like that Volke would like Luther to keep an eye on Ryker, and Luther snaps back with, "Oh yeah, Dread Pirate Ryker, torturer of canines. He once collected dozens of pooches to a fashion of buccaneer's coat."
I'm with Luther on this one. It's
Volke is just spiraling at this point, trying to find something to say that he doesn't trust Ryker about, and says, "Oh, well, he can torture puppies." But that could get a bit weird for Luther. Imagining somebody being left in a room by themselves for most of the day at the age of like 16, 17.
the one saving grace is Luther's been bonded to 2 16, 17-year-olds, so hopefully a little less thrown by anything that might go on.
So everybody gets assembled into the map room. Volke is getting kind of waiting for Guildmaster to come in. He pops out, shadow steps out, sees that Guildmaster and Ryker are talking, and he starts to drop some eaves on them. He does realize that Ryker is not the gloating or lording himself over others, honestly, and he's just kind of thrown into this, so he just kind of go for the ride at the moment.
And Volk, I think, realizes where everyone else was, that maybe I overreacted on judging this dude. Does bring us to chapter 19, which is Forfend in the Occult Compass. So Eventide is giving the scouting report on the Second Ascension. So Devlin and his crew again agree to come along, so they're in the room as well. Volk gets called to the front and pulls out Forfend so that they can actually use the compass. Ilya brings the compass up, and they use the little map thingy with the figurines, and Gentle knows where to go, and they take off. And to give kind of a little breakdown of who is there, so Eventide, obviously the Grandmaster, Arcanist, Zelfrey, Devlin, Gilly, and Jose are considered Master Arcanists, and then Yesna and Gallus, who we haven't really met, are also Master Arcanists, but they're not there. They're on another mission, so not with the guild at that time.
I just want to say that the map on Gentle, like the map room, that map they have to interact with Gentle, that would be like the perfect D&D board.
It's so cool.
And that brings us into chapter 20, Arrival at the Isle of Ruma. Gentle sets sail, and they're getting ready to go to their adventure to find the World Serpent. Basically, the all-seeing eye tells them which way to go for the compass, and they get going. And here we go with Eye of the Tiger playing while we have this like epic. Okay, cat. I mean, Eye of the Tiger, I guess. So we have this epic Eye of the Tiger training montage as we're leaving and getting to the Isle of Ruma. Eviana is training absolutely as hard as humanly possible, and I really like this. She's showing that she does not want it easy. She wants to do everything she can to help everybody else out. She doesn't want to be that person that is the one being protected rather than being the protector. Again, this is another great reason why she's a Nightmare Arcanist. She's spending all this extra time, same as Volke. She's putting in the hours to get better. And Volke kind of tells her that she needs to slow down a little bit and that she hasn't been bonded for years like him, even though he's been bonded for all of like 2 years.
And he was second bonded for most of that, so he was held back a grade, essentially.
Right, so it's not like he's got a whole lot of expertise to talk about, but again, he's true form, so we give him that. Eviana does say that she does not want to end up like Livia, and this is again a good show of her character. She doesn't want to be the one that is being protected, but being the protector. Luther again basically asked Volke, like, how did you manage to find yourself in these situations? Because of the fact that he is betrothed, that Eviana is essentially planning on this being a thing. Volk decides to figure out his girl problem to go to the old reliable for advice.
And he pulls an Eviana this time and is just like, yeah, I'll just shadow step into the room. That's not going to surprise anyone.
Shadow steps into Zelfrey's room again. And Zelfrey is dressed with his trousers on, he's getting his shirt on, and basically is like, look, I am the last person that you want any kind of relationship advice from. And you need to, if you want advice, ask literally anybody else. And I quote, even an upturned broom with a bucket on top could do better than me. So he gives Volk the pat on the back and says, here you go. Here's some advice. You'll do great. I believe in you. Don't give up. Pick whatever phrase motivates you the best, kid, and get out.
Such inspiration.
And imagine Volk is just like, but who do I ask? I can't talk to Luther. He won't help. Mathis apparently never ended up in those kinds of situations when he was younger. And
I honestly think Mathis probably did find himself, and Luther's like, yeah, I'm not helping you on this one. I want to watch this play out. Like, he's in it for the drama.
He's sitting back watching, eating some popcorn. The chapter ends as we are coming up to the Isle of Ruma, and we see that on the horizon. And this, again, is where the chapter ends. Now, I'm rolling the dice here with the bestiary because I keep asking Shami, can I feel bad? But at the same time, it's kind of like I keep telling her, like, hey, this is when the recording's going to be released. So it should hopefully make it in there in time. But
I mean, we can always, it's easy to cut out the whole section of it. So it's just one snip.
Now that the bestiary has been released and those with the Kickstarter have gotten their copies and had a chance to peruse through it, we are starting this week's bestiary section with The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson?
Oh, I mean, he's as big as a rock at this point, I bet.
Can you fly?
I don't think he can fly. The mythology for the rocks are often found in Middle Eastern mythology. They are typically described as huge, enormous legendary birds of prey, and they were popularized in the story of 1001 Nights, where a rock appears in Sinbad's tale. In the story, the rock does live on an island and is extremely dangerous. The Trial of Worth, in order to bond with a rock, you have to venture to its mountain cave and present it with a dead bull. If one didn't kill and carry the animal himself, it will not be accepted. So you got to be pretty strong, I bet, to be able to haul that up. It is confirmed tier 3. It has a progeny reproduction, and rocks primarily live on mountain caves or small islands. And they only mate after consuming the flesh of whales. So they have a very specific
dietary restriction.
Dessert. Or pre-mating feast. Their evocation is stormy winds. They are able to evoke chilly air that blasts outward with storm-like ferocity, and icy winds that can freeze someone if they're not careful. This is huge, seen with the Sun Chaser along with the entrance to Port Crown, since there's a rock specifically sitting there waiting, just to check to see who's coming in to make sure everybody is not after the pirates. They are able to manipulate the wind, and again, we can see this with the Sun Chaser being imbued with rock magic. It can actually cause their Arcanist to be able to manipulate the wind so that they can basically not fly, but they can glide. I imagine they can control the air pretty well for a short distance.
Falling with style.
Yes, I like it. Now, they are able to augment their sharpness. So when they're augmenting others, they are able to grant increased durability and honed edges. For example, they augment a sword or a blade. The blade will become harder and sharper. And if they're augmenting a person or a mystical creature, they will become tougher to harm. So skin will basically turn to stone or basically similar materials. And when they're augmenting themselves, they gain elongated and sharpened talons, whereas their Arcanists sprout talons from the ends of their fingertips. So that is a pretty handy and versatile augmentation. Their passive abilities are basically that they can see up to about 10 times better than a normal human. And since they are considered man-eaters, they are also immune to the bloodborne illnesses. So this is something that Devlin really had no concern about. Maybe he probably didn't know particularly that it was man-eaters were immune. I'm not sure how that all worked out in the earlier parts of the plague, but either way, he's not concerned. We did get to see the aura of rocks as their hurricane aura, where they're able to affect the weather and be able to have winds up to the speed of about 110 miles an hour. And they're able to gather dark clouds overhead, dumping water on them as if there was a hurricane on top. And the hurricane doesn't affect the rock or its Arcanist. So they can pretty much have this thing going, standing in the eye of this hurricane and not be affected. Now, in order for rocks to achieve their true form, it is considered a virtue true form, so they have to embody a specific virtue. In order to achieve the rock's virtue true form, they basically have to embody the ideals of a pirate and basically have a lack of or any value for human life, and that belief that might equals right and a general disregard for all authority or government. So I can see the Devlin is, as far as the disregard for authority, he doesn't want to be in guilds, that kind of thing. So that's definitely a part of the virtue that he's working towards, but I can never see Devlin truly being or ever getting a true form rock. He cares about people too much.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, look at Bayou. Like, that kid alone, could never be mad at that kid. Now, rock's true form is that it develops a longer neck, and it grows 2 additional wings and 2 additional legs with talons. The rock also gains fangs, grows slightly larger, and has black tip feathers. And that's just terrifying because it's glowing gold eyes and extra wings. Anything with extra wings is terrifying to begin with, but, again, why not? Its true form ability is that it has the Lord of Bloody Waters, a true form rock, as well as its Arcanist can speak and control sharks, orcas, and other meat-eating carnivores that live in the depths of the ocean. So they are completely badass for pirates.
The other mystical creature we're going to cover is the Wendigo. So the mythology behind them, based off of the Wendigo from Native American folklore, and they typically are seen as evil spirits who invoke insatiable greed, hunger, and cannibalize each other. So the myths are pretty frightening, and we often see a lot of that reflected in the Wendigos throughout the Frith Chronicles as well. Their trial of worth is finding a Wendigo in a snow-covered forest. And remember, they can become invisible, so that alone can be very difficult. And the Wendigo will remain hidden until the dawn of the next day, and then the person taking the trial has to have survived through the night and not frozen to death before they can bond. They are tier 2 and reproduce through progeny, so they make their dens in snowy regions near rotting mushrooms and other fungi growing near the corpses of frostbitten animals. They are able to evoke what's known as hoarfrost, so the Wendigo and the Arcanist can invoke frosty rime that coats the ground. And the longer they evoke this, the thicker and the more devastating the ice becomes. We have seen their manipulation of flesh when Fane was able to manipulate Volke's flesh. So Wendigo and their Arcanist can manipulate living creatures, essentially treating skin and muscle as a malleable clay. Their augmentation is invisibility, so when augmenting themselves and others, the Wendigo and their Arcanist become invisible. This doesn't hide any noises that they would make, and it doesn't make them able to be passed through incorporeal, but they are invisible to other mystical creatures and Arcanists. From passive abilities, they do have what's called perfect traction on ice and snow, so able to run without falling on even the slickest of surfaces. And they're also immune to the cold, whether that's weather cold or magical cold, instant death effects, and blood diseases. Their aura is ravenousness. Anemone. And then when a Wendigo Arcanist creates their aura, the nearby area becomes thick with the stink of blood, and while this aura is active, any individuals close to the Wendigo become hungry, stomachs twist with pain, and they often crave the flesh of other humans. So the longer they're in the area, the more likely they are to become susceptible to the hunger and start eating each other. This is considered a form of mind control and can be resisted by creatures that have an innate ability or a magical ability that resists mind control. Their true form is a Gaius, so the Wendigo Arcanist must live away from society for at least a full moon cycle and consume the flesh of a human in order for their Eldrin to achieve true form. When they do achieve true form, the Wendigo will stand on its hind legs. This is something that Gilly had mentioned before. Very similar to like a werewolf, and its front paws will become more human-like, and the antlers on its skull grow more numerous and become extremely pointed. Their true form ability is grave speech, so a true form Wendigo and its Arcanist can speak with souls. So if somebody had recently died, generally within 3 hours, the Wendigo may speak with the corpse as though the person was still there. If the person is in the abyssal hells, the Wendigo may speak with all the souls and various fragments that are there as well. So, very cool true form ability.
I wonder if this is something that, for those that are keeping up with the Astro Academy series, I wonder if this is something that is planned to be seen.
It feels like it fits very well with a lot of ongoing in the book to avoid any spoilers, but it is something that I would be very interested to see if it pops up because it fits very well into the plot line.
I didn't even realize about the whole true form aura. That is fairly disturbing. I'll give that one. All right. We do want to thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys next week. I know that we are getting close to Labyrinth Arcanist. I know Shami said that in the next couple months from this airing. I know she's working on a new book called 6 Words. I believe this is not something that's going to be indie published, but through a publishing house. I know she is working on it, though. She doesn't have a release date yet, but the cover looks really awesome. It's got a dragon on the front. I love dragons.
Love dragons.
Like if you have the name dragon or a picture of a dragon on the book, I'm probably going to read it.
It's worth a read.
And with that, thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
Eric, Scott, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. We post a new episode every Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard Time. We are on all podcasting platforms and are also on YouTube as well for video. After the additional episode airs, we post chapter-by-chapter videos every day in a smaller, easier-to-digest format. We do want to give a special shout-out to the final member of our team, Dan Mackison, one of the admins for the Frith Chronicles Wiki, link listed below, and doing his best to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. If you want to reach out to us, you could email us at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or any other social media by searching for Frith Guild Podcast. Just to remind everybody, we have links to everything in the description below on both the podcast and YouTube.